Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I put together a 3-day meal prep, which includes breakfast, lunch, dinner, and one snack. I follow a high carb, low fat, oil-free plant-based diet and can help you follow one too. If it's your first time here, be sure to check out my Facebook group. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, and of course, hit subscribe, especially so you don't miss part 2 of this video. Alright, so we're going to start by first prepping our ingredients that take the longest to cook, which is usually, of course, our starches. So for this meal prep, we are going to be using brown rice. As you can see, I'm using organic jasmine brown rice, but any brown rice will do. We will also be using 4 to 5 small to medium potatoes. I'm just using all-purpose potatoes, but any variety should be fine. It's whatever you prefer. And lastly, I have 2 cans of chickpeas here. One is for hummus and the other is for roasting. I've already made a video on my hummus recipe, so I'm not going to repeat it here, but you can certainly check that out on my channel. You can also feel free to use an oil-free store-bought hummus as well. Okay, so the next ingredient that we will be needing is boiled and cooled beets. Now, I actually had cooked these the night before, knowing that I was about to do my prep, but you can certainly make them the day of as well. The easiest way is just to boil them. It usually takes about an hour to an hour and a half, and then just run them under really cold water and they cool off pretty quickly. So to make the brown rice, I'm just using 1/2 cup of brown rice, and then I just like to cover it in water the same way that you would cook pasta, and I find that it makes the perfect rice every time. Just cook it until it's tender and you're good to go. Okay, so while the rice is cooking, we're going to get started on prepping our chickpeas. So like I mentioned before, the 1 can is meant to be used for the hummus, so be sure to check out my hummus recipe. It's super easy. And with the 2nd can, we are going to be roasting them. But first, we're just going to drain them, rinse them off, and then we're going to be adding 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke, and we're going to let them soak in this while we prep the potatoes. So I usually like to let them sit for about 30 minutes or so, and this just gives them so much flavor. They are so delicious. It's actually delicious even before roasting them if you just put this on and eat them as is. It's really good. So we are just going to set that aside, and then we're going to get started on our potatoes. So as far as prepping the potatoes go, we're just going to be chopping them into about 1-inch bite-sized pieces. That is not a hard rule, that's just what I prefer, so if you prefer a different size, then go for it. The other thing I wanted to mention was the amount of potatoes. I just said roughly 4 to 5 small to medium potatoes, but just prep as many as you think you will need for 2 meals. Once the potatoes are chopped, then we're just going to move them onto a lined baking sheet, and we're just going to make sure that they're all pretty evenly spaced out and that we left some room to add our chickpeas to the same pan. 2 things that I wanted to mention about the chickpeas is 1, don't worry about it if you don't have any liquid smoke. That's no problem at all. That's just an added bonus, but you can certainly season them to taste just as good. And secondly, the chickpeas are not going to take as long as the potatoes, so I think I removed the chickpeas about 45 minutes after baking and left the potatoes in for just over an hour. As for the seasonings, I just kept it simple and used a little bit of garlic powder, salt, black pepper, and everything but the bagel seasoning. So after the seasoning is on, you can put it in the oven at 375 degrees. We will be making 2 different salads for this meal prep, and both of them keep really well in the fridge. So the first one will be a kale salad, and as you can see, I just grabbed a bag of the pre-chopped kale just to keep it nice and simple, along with some fresh fennel, 1 carrot, and 1 apple, as well as a 1/4 cup of raisins. Now, if you're not eating any dried fruit at all, then just replace that with a 1/4 cup of fresh grapes. So that's it as far as the actual ingredients for the salad. As for the dressing, we're going to be using 1 teaspoon of cinnamon as well as lemon juice. Now, as you can see, I just grabbed the store-bought stuff, but of course feel free to use freshly squeezed. And lastly, we'll be using a little bit of sea salt. All right, so now we're going to bring this salad to life. So you're just gonna start by adding 3 to 4 good-sized handfuls of the kale. Secondly, we're going to chop this down into bite-sized pieces, just because I find that the bag is great being pre-chopped and all, but some of the pieces are quite a mouthful, so it's just easy if we break it down and make it a little bit more fine. Next, we will be adding the lemon juice. As you can see, I'm just kind of pouring it on. There's no exact measurement, so just add enough to your liking. Then we're going to be adding some sea salt, and between the sea salt and the lemon juice, it actually breaks the kale down a little bit, so it makes it easier and nicer to chew. So you just want to massage that in when you're done. And now we're just going to quickly prepare the rest of the ingredients. This salad is so simple. There's only 4 real ingredients aside from the kale. So as you can see, I just peeled my carrot. I like to shred up the carrot, I find it so much nicer to chew once again. When you're dealing with vegetables that are, a little bit on the fibrous or coarse side, it's just so nice if we break them down, much more enjoyable to eat. So here, as you can see, I am chopping up the fennel. So I'm just doing it into bite-sized pieces. For those of you who haven't had fennel before, it has a very sweet, delicious black licorice type flavor. It brings the salad together. It makes it very sweet and very delicious. And now we're going to be chopping up the apple. Again, just very small, bite-sized pieces. This gives the salad just a little bit of an added crunch, along with some added sweetness as well. And it's also worth mentioning that the lemon juice in this salad will also prevent the apples from turning brown. Okay, so lastly, we're just going to go ahead and add that 1/4 cup of raisins, or 1/4 cup even to 1/2 cup of fresh grapes. And then we're just gonna go ahead and give it a really good mix, make sure everything is covered nicely in that lemon juice. And also, I forgot at this point to add that cinnamon, but we will be adding it later. Look how gorgeous this salad is, and yes, it tastes as good as it looks. Okay, so the next salad that we will be making is a beet and mint salad, another really simple recipe to throw together. So for this recipe, you will need about 8 to 10 small beets, a handful of fresh cilantro, and a handful of fresh mint. And we'll be using an orange, or the juice of the orange, for the dressing, as well as about 1/2 of an onion. So again, very basic, simple ingredients. As I've already mentioned before, you need the beets to be boiled and then cooled. We want them to be a nice, soft but firm texture. You can actually cook them with the peel right on them. All you have to do is just cut off the ends, and then once they're cooked and cooled, the peel will basically fall right off. So I guess I should mention that before cutting them, you do want to make sure that they are peeled. Okay, so once the beets are chopped and ready to go, we're going to go ahead and cut up that onion. So I like to use about 1/2 or maybe even just 1/3 of an onion depending on the size. But again, there are no hard rules. That is just a matter of preference. I like to dice them up into fine slices just because you can actually remove them if you don't want to eat them, but they will still add some flavor to the salad. Now we are going to go ahead and make our freshly squeezed orange juice for the dressing. I just want to say, can I comment on the colors? Like between the colors of the beets and the color of that orange juice, wow. So now we're just going to go ahead and strain this orange juice, get rid of those seeds, and come back with some beautiful, freshly squeezed juice. So watch how simple it is to throw this salad together. We're just gonna go ahead and throw those onions in, our cilantro, our fresh mint, 1 teaspoon of cumin, which, sorry guys, I forgot to mention that before, a dash of salt, and then we're gonna go ahead and add that freshly squeezed orange juice as our dressing, and that is it. Now we're just gonna give everything a really good mix and just watch those colors come to life. For those of you who don't know, my husband's actually from Morocco, so this is a Moroccan-inspired salad. It is super healthy and super flavorful. Okay, so at this point, our starches are cooking and our salads are ready. And now we're moving on to our non-starchy veggies, as well as a super easy 2-minute enchilada sauce. So as you can see, I'll be using 2 bags of frozen roasted vegetables, just for the sake of saving some time. I should also note that any frozen veggies will do. I just thought that these were pretty cool that they were already roasted, considering how much time that would take if I were to try to roast them myself. So of course, to cook these veggies, we will not be using any oil. Instead, I just like to use some soy sauce. I just find that it gives it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of color, as well as using some garlic powder. Again, no exact measurements on the spices and seasonings, just add them to your liking. And here I'm just adding a dash of black pepper and a tiny bit of salt. Give it all a good mix, and then we're going to be putting it on the stovetop on medium to high heat for about 10 to 12 minutes or until the veggies are soft. And now we are going to be making a separate pan of diced onions and peppers. Again, as you can see, I just grabbed the store-bought frozen kind. I just find that they save so much time, especially when doing a meal prep. So they certainly come in handy. But again, if you don't have that available to you, then just feel free to chop up the fresh vegetables instead. So we are just going to go ahead and dump those into the pan. We're going to mix them together, and of course, once again, we will not be using any oil. So I actually like to use a little bit of coconut sauce or coconut aminos. It gives them that beautiful brownish color that we usually get when we fry onions in oil, as well as it's a little bit sweeter and less salty than soy sauce. So like I mentioned before, we're just going to cook the non-starchy veggies on a medium to high heat for roughly about 10 minutes or so for both. I didn't have to use any extra liquid when cooking this. However, if your food starts to burn, then just add a little bit of extra water to prevent it from burning or sticking. Now we are going to whip together this super easy 2-minute enchilada sauce, and of course it is oil-free. So we will be adding a half a teaspoon of cumin, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, a half a teaspoon of oregano, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and 1 tablespoon of paprika, but unfortunately I did not have any, and it still actually turned out okay. And then lastly, 2 tablespoons of flour for thickening. Next, we're going to give everything a thorough mix just to make sure it's all evenly blended. And lastly, we'll be adding 2 cups of water to the dry mix, and then we'll be bringing the whole thing to a boil. Once it's boiling, let it boil for about 1 to 2 minutes or until it thickens up, and that's it. Okay, so we've made it this far, and now for the fun part. We're actually going to start putting the meals together. So here we are going to be starting with our breakfasts. So as you can see, I have 3 breakfasts planned out. 2 of the 3 breakfasts are overnight oats, and 1 is a starchy smoothie. However, if you prefer to have all 3 breakfasts the same, then feel free to do that as well. So we are going to start by adding 1/2 cup of quick oats or whatever oats you prefer to each of the jars. Next, we will be adding 1/2 teaspoon of apple pie spice to the first jar, as we will be making apple pie overnight oats. For the second breakfast, we will be making pumpkin pie overnight oats, so we'll be adding 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. As far as our fruit toppings go, we're going to be adding 1 chopped apple to the overnight apple pie oats, as well as adding a cinnamon stick in there. The cinnamon stick is optional, it just obviously adds a little bit more flavor. Okay, so I need to point something out here. As delicious as this looks, you guys have no idea how delicious this smelled. It actually smelled like an apple pie or pumpkin pie. I mean, just incredible. Okay, so as far as the pumpkin pie overnight oats, I actually just waited to add the banana until the day that I was eating it. But of course, it's totally up to you. Next, we are going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract to both of the overnight oatmeal. And lastly, we'll be adding 1 cup of unsweetened vanilla plant-based milk to both of them. And that's all there is to it. So then you just want to give both of them a good mix, make sure everything is covered, and then we're just going to pop a lid on it and your 2 breakfasts are ready to go. Keep in mind, these can be eaten either cold or warmed up. I would just recommend dumping it into a bowl and popping it in your microwave or on the stovetop if you want it heated. If I'm being honest with you guys, I have been sleeping on overnight oats. I know that they are super popular within the plant-based community, but I just never was big on them until now. They are so convenient, super easy when you're in a rush or needing something on the go. They are really great for any time of the day, so don't just limit them just to breakfast alone. They would make for a great lunch as well. Okay, so last but not least, we will be moving on to our starchy smoothie or chocolate protein shake. So all you will need is 1/2 cup of black beans, and that can be canned or cooked. You will be needing 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder and 1 large banana. And lastly, I'll be adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Once everything is in the bag, we're gonna go ahead and throw that in the freezer. When you are ready to eat it for breakfast, you just take it out of the freezer and directly put it in your blender, add 1 to 1.5 cups of unsweetened vanilla plant-based milk, and you will have yourself a very delicious chocolate starchy smoothie. So those are my 3 super simple breakfasts. I hope you enjoy. So now that everything is cooked and ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and start filling up these containers. As far as measurements go, I didn't measure anything out, but I will say that the brown rice, the chickpeas, and the hummus were approximately about 1/2 cup. I definitely didn't worry about the measurements on the non-starchy veggies, such as the onion and pepper mix and the roasted veggies, because when you don't cook with oil, the non-starchy veggies are super low in calories naturally. So I just added as much as I wanted to these trays and just figured I would rather have more than not enough. And speaking of these trays, my husband actually ordered these for me on Amazon when I told him that I wanted to start meal prepping. And they are actually pretty handy trays, so they can go in the microwave, they're dishwasher friendly, and they have yet to leak on me. So I would recommend them at this point. Oh, and as a quick side note, I'm adding that cinnamon that I told you guys I forgot to add before to the kale salad. Oh, that cinnamon just really brings it all together. It's so delicious. Okay, so back to the trays. So eventually I think I want to get some glass ones, but again, these are really great starter trays. So if you guys are interested, I can try to find the Amazon link and I will post that in my description box below if I am successful. So another thing worth mentioning is, for those of you who have been following me, you know that I always say that there are no hard rules. So as you can see, I'm pairing certain things with other things, but if you want to switch it up a little bit and add a different salad in place of the other one, then feel free to do that. There are no hard rules. We want to make this food so that you enjoy it. However, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what I did with each of these meals and how I matched them all up. So for lunch number 1, we have our roasted potatoes with our onion and pepper mix on top, as well as hummus and raw veggies. For lunch number 2, we have our roasted chickpeas, our brown rice, and our beet and mint salad. And for lunch number 3, we have our kale salad, hummus, and onion and pepper mix, which I forgot to add a pita to that because for that lunch, we'd actually be adding all of those things to make a pita wrap. And that's it. We now have our 3 lunches prepped and ready to go for the next 3 days. Okay, so we have made it to dinner time. So let's go ahead and fill these trays with dinner. So as you can see, I'm just using the brown rice in the first 2 dinners and our roasted potatoes in the last one. So here I'm just opening up a can of pinto beans because I'll be using half of a cup of pinto beans for the first dinner. And that's why we made that enchilada sauce earlier for those beans. As you will see here with the roasted veggies, I'm using them in different portions for different meals. So again, feel free to play around and mix things up to your liking. I will be showing you how much is left over from each of the meals that we prep, so that can give you an idea of how much you will actually need. So feel free to tweak those measurements that I was giving you in the beginning of this video based on how much you think you will be eating. So here you will see that there is not very much of the kale salad left over, maybe just a few bites there. So it was pretty good as far as what I felt my needs were based on. And believe me, this salad is so good that I'm sure others in the house will help you finish it even if there were leftovers. And as you can see, there's not very much beet and mint salad left over. I would say that I used about 2 cups per serving in the prep. So if you want a little less, then feel free to prepare a little bit less, but I think I hit it on the head for myself. As for the onion and pepper mixture, I think I did make quite a bit of that. However, I'm not complaining just because I could literally probably eat a whole pan of cooked onions. So that was no problem for me, but certainly if you're not a huge onion lover, you can make a lot less. Okay, so for meal number 1, we have our beet and mint salad, brown rice and onion and pepper mixture, as well as pinto beans and enchilada sauce. Meal number 2, we have our roasted veggies, brown rice with the onion and peppers, as well as our roasted chickpeas. And meal number 3, we have our roasted veggies, our roasted potatoes with the onion mixture on top, and our kale salad. I mean, I don't mean to brag or anything, but come on, like these meals are so delicious, and the best part is they are super healthy for us. Okay, so my favorite time is snack time. However, it is worth saying that I just have these snacks prepped just in case. I am trying not to do so much snacking and being a little bit heavier on my meals instead. However, I did want to have a healthy snack in place in case I felt the need to have some. So for the first snack, we will be having my protein balls with my favorite peppermint vanilla tea. And the second snack will be a cherry nice cream. So we'll just be using half of a cup of frozen cherries with 1 banana, and we'll just be throwing it all in the bag and then in the freezer. And then when it's ready to eat, you just add a splash of unsweetened vanilla plant-based milk, just enough to get it moving. And lastly, my favorite type of mango, as well as 1 ounce of cashews. I do actually measure out my nuts when I eat them, and I don't eat them very frequently. However, if you are not eating any nuts, then just feel free to leave that out. So that's it. 3 delicious, simple snacks, all prepped and ready to go in case of an emergency snack attack. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I sure enjoyed making it, and be sure to hit subscribe, as I will be having a part 2 to this video where I will be showing you guys a 4-day meal prep. That way, if there's any of you who prefer to just prep for an entire 7 days, then you can just combine both the videos together and you'll be good to go. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and of course subscribe to my channel for many other future videos following a whole food, oil-free, plant-based lifestyle. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.